In the summer of 2023, auction house specialist David Carrington discovered a remarkable collection of early color photographs while cataloging the estate of the deceased Blackwood family in Charleston, South Carolina. Among the carefully preserved images was one that would fundamentally challenge everything historians knew about early color photography and the tragic history of one of the South's most notorious ballrooms. The photograph, dated New Year's Eve 1930, captured a lavish party at the grand ballroom of the Magnolia Manor, dozens of elegantly dressed guests dancing beneath crystal chandeliers, their faces radiant with laughter and celebration. The image possessed an almost ethereal quality that made the Jazz-Age revelry seem to come alive, until David noticed something that made his blood run cold. In the ornate mirror that dominated the ballroom's far wall, the same scene was reflected with one horrifying difference. Every single guest appeared to be screaming in absolute terror, their faces contorted with expressions of unimaginable agony. Dr. Margaret Rothschild, a specialist in early photographic processes and Southern Gothic history at the University of South Carolina, was contacted when David's preliminary research revealed that the photograph might be connected to one of Charleston's most enduring mysteries, the mass disappearance of 37 party guests during a New Year's Eve celebration at Magnolia Manor in 1930. The incident had been one of the most extensively investigated missing persons cases in South Carolina history, yet despite decades of scrutiny, no trace of the vanished guests had ever been found, and no satisfactory explanation had ever been provided for their simultaneous disappearance. The Magnolia Manor had been the crown jewel of Charleston's antebellum society, built in 1847 by cotton magnate Augustus Blackwood as the ultimate expression of Southern wealth and refinement. The mansion's grand ballroom was renowned throughout the region for its spectacular parties, featuring a ceiling painted with mythological scenes, Italian marble floors that reflected the light of 6 massive crystal chandeliers, and mirrors imported from Venetian craftsmen that were said to be among the finest examples of their kind in America. The ballroom had hosted presidents, foreign dignitaries, and the most prominent families of Southern society during its golden age before the Civil War. The 1930 New Year's Eve party had been intended as a triumphant return to the mansion's former glory, marking the end of decades of decline that had followed the Blackwood family's financial ruin during Reconstruction. Harold Blackwood, Augustus's great-grandson, had recently inherited the manor and had spent his remaining family fortune restoring the ballroom to its original splendor. The party was designed to celebrate both the new decade and the mansion's restoration, bringing together Charleston's surviving aristocratic families and the new industrial elite who had emerged during the 1920s economic boom. Contemporary newspaper accounts had described the party as the most lavish social event Charleston had seen since before the Civil War. More than 100 guests had been invited to celebrate in the restored ballroom, with music provided by a jazz orchestra from New York and refreshments catered by the city's most prestigious establishments. The guest list had included politicians, business leaders, prominent socialites, and members of Charleston's oldest families, representing both old money and new wealth in a celebration that was intended to mark the city's emergence from its post-war decline. Dr. Rothschild's analysis of the mysterious photograph using modern digital enhancement technology revealed details that defied conventional explanation. The image showed clear evidence of being a genuine early color photograph, using the autochrome process that had been available since the early 1900s, but was rarely employed due to its expense and technical complexity. The quality and composition of the image suggested the work of a highly skilled photographer who had access to the most advanced equipment available in 1930. However, the reflection in the ballroom's mirror presented an impossibility that challenged both photographic science and basic physics. While the main scene showed guests in the midst of joyous celebration, couples dancing, people laughing and raising champagne glasses, musicians playing with evident enthusiasm, the mirror's reflection depicted the exact same individuals in states of extreme terror. Their mouths were open in silent screams, their eyes wide with fear, and their body language conveyed panic and desperation that was completely absent from their actual appearance in the main photograph. Advanced photographic analysis confirmed that the image had not been manipulated using any technique available in 1930. The lighting, shadows, and perspective of both the main scene and the reflection were mathematically consistent, ruling out double exposure or composite photography. Chemical analysis of the photographic emulsion revealed no evidence of alteration or retouching. Most puzzling of all, the reflection showed details that were not visible in the main scene, subtle differences in clothing, jewelry, and facial expressions that suggested the mirror was somehow capturing a different version of reality than what was actually occurring in the ballroom. Dr. Rothschild's investigation into the history of the Magnolia Manor ballroom revealed a pattern of tragedy and supernatural phenomena that stretched back to the mansion's construction in 1847. The ballroom's mirrors had been crafted by Venetian artisan Giuseppe Marcelli, whose work was renowned throughout Europe for its exceptional quality and rumored to possess properties that transcended mere reflection. Marcelli had been commissioned by Augustus Blackwood specifically because of legends surrounding his mirrors, stories that claimed they could reveal truths hidden from ordinary sight and show the true nature of those who gazed into them. The investigation revealed that Marcelli's mirrors had been associated with mysterious incidents throughout their history. European collectors who had owned Marcelli mirrors reported strange phenomena: reflections that appeared before the person arrived in front of the glass, images that showed different time periods or locations, and most disturbing of all, reflections that revealed the true emotional or spiritual state of the viewer, regardless of their outward appearance. Several European families had sold their Marcelli mirrors after experiencing what they described as visions of unbearable truth that the mirrors seemed compelled to reveal. Contemporary accounts from the antebellum period documented similar phenomena occurring in the Magnolia Manor ballroom. Guests at parties during the 1850s had reported seeing disturbing images in the mirrors that didn't match the festive atmosphere of the celebrations. Some claimed to see themselves as they truly were, revealing hidden anxieties, secret sins, or future misfortunes that were normally concealed beneath social facades. Others reported seeing the ballroom filled with different people entirely, as if the mirrors were showing events from other time periods or parallel realities. If you're as intrigued as we are by these secrets of the past, consider subscribing to not miss any of our future investigations. The Civil War had brought an end to the Magnolia Manor's golden age, with the ballroom closed for decades, as the Blackwood family struggled with financial ruin and social ostracism. During this period, caretakers and occasional visitors had reported that the mirrors continued to display anomalous reflections, even when the ballroom was empty, showing ghostly figures dancing to music that no one could hear. Some accounts describe seeing reflections of past parties, with guests from different decades appearing simultaneously in the mirror's surface, as if time itself had become compressed within the glass. Dr. Rothschild's research into the 1930 New Year's Eve party revealed that Harold Blackwood had been aware of the mirror's reputation, but had chosen to ignore the warnings from older family members and local residents who urged him to have the mirrors removed before reopening the ballroom. Harold had been desperate to restore his family's social standing and had viewed the supernatural stories as mere superstition that shouldn't interfere with his plans for Charleston's most spectacular party in decades. The guest list for the 1930 party had been carefully curated to represent Charleston's social elite, including members of families who had attended parties at Magnolia Manor before the Civil War. Many of the guests had family connections to the ballroom's golden age, creating an eerie symmetry between past and present that may have contributed to whatever supernatural forces were unleashed during the celebration. The party had been intended as a symbolic resurrection of Charleston's antebellum society, bringing together the ghosts of the past with the hopes of the present. Contemporary accounts from the few survivors who had left the party before the mass disappearance described an increasingly strange atmosphere as the evening progressed. Several guests had commented on the mirror's disturbing reflections, noting that their own images seemed somehow wrong, showing expressions of sadness, fear, or anger that they weren't actually feeling. Musicians had reported difficulty playing their instruments, claiming that the mirrors seemed to reflect different music than what they were actually performing. The disappearance itself had occurred sometime between midnight and dawn on January 1, 1931. The last confirmed sighting of the party guests had been at 11:45 p.m., when servants had observed the celebration in full swing through the ballroom's windows. When staff arrived to begin cleanup at 6 a.m., they found the ballroom completely empty, except for abandoned drinks, discarded dance cards, and personal items scattered across the marble floor. The orchestra's instruments had been left mid-song, with sheet music still open on their stands and champagne glasses still bubbling on nearby tables. The police investigation that followed had been one of the most extensive in South Carolina history, involving state authorities, federal agents, and private investigators hired by the missing guests' families. Despite exhaustive searches of the mansion, the surrounding grounds and nearby areas where the guests might have traveled, no trace of the 37 missing individuals had ever been discovered. The investigation had been further complicated by the complete absence of witnesses. Servants had reported hearing music and laughter until midnight, followed by absolute silence that had continued through the dawn hours. Dr. Rothschild's analysis of police records from the investigation revealed numerous anomalies that had puzzled contemporary investigators. The ballroom had been found in perfect order, except for the abandoned personal items, with no signs of violence, struggle, or hurried departure. The mirrors had been intact and properly mounted, showing no evidence of damage or disturbance. Most mysteriously, several witnesses had reported that the mirrors appeared to be reflecting empty ballroom scenes, even when investigators were standing directly in front of them, as if the glass was showing a different version of reality than what was actually present. The investigation expanded to include research into similar incidents that might have occurred at other locations where Marcelli mirrors were installed. Dr. Rothschild discovered that several European palaces and mansions containing Marcelli mirrors had experienced mysterious disappearances during formal gatherings, typically involving groups of people who vanished simultaneously without leaving any trace of their departure. The pattern suggested that Marcelli mirrors might serve as portals or gateways that could transport people to other dimensions or time periods under specific circumstances. The research revealed that Marcelli himself had been a mysterious figure whose personal history was shrouded in legend and speculation. Born in Venice in 1795, he had claimed to be the heir to ancient glassmaking techniques that had been passed down through generations of Venetian craftsmen who served the city's most powerful families. Marcelli's mirrors were said to be created using methods that combined traditional glassmaking with alchemical processes that imbued the finished products with supernatural properties. Contemporary accounts from Marcelli's workshop describe the creation process for his mirrors as involving elaborate rituals that took place during specific astronomical alignments. The glass was apparently treated with substances and techniques that were never fully documented, creating surfaces that possessed properties beyond normal reflection. Marcelli had claimed that his mirrors could show truth beyond appearance, revealing the genuine nature of people and events rather than mere physical images. As we delve deeper into these mysteries, we invite you to join our community of explorers of the inexplicable. Subscribe and become part of the search for truth. Dr. Rothschild's investigation revealed that the 1930 photograph might represent the only visual documentation of the moment when the Magnolia Manor mirrors activated their supernatural properties, capturing both the physical reality of the party and the spiritual truth that the mirrors were revealing. The terrified reflections could represent the guests' unconscious awareness that they were about to be transported to another dimension, their souls recognizing the impending transformation even while their conscious minds continued to celebrate. Modern attempts to examine the ballroom mirrors using advanced optical and electromagnetic detection equipment had produced anomalous results that defied conventional scientific explanation. The mirrors appeared to reflect different wavelengths of light than what was actually present, creating images that couldn't be explained by normal optical principles. Thermal imaging had detected temperature variations across the mirrors' surfaces that formed patterns resembling human figures even when the ballroom was empty. The investigation revealed that several psychic mediums who had visited the ballroom had reported sensing the presence of the missing party guests, describing them as existing in a state of temporal suspension where they continued to experience the New Year's Eve celebration in an endless loop. According to these accounts, the guests were trapped within the mirror's dimensional space, reliving the same night over and over while remaining conscious of their predicament, but unable to escape or communicate with the outside world. Dr. Rothschild's research into quantum physics and dimensional theory revealed that Marcelli mirrors might function according to principles that modern science was only beginning to understand. The mirrors could potentially create localized distortions in spacetime that allowed for the observation of alternate realities or parallel dimensions. The 1930 party might have created conditions where multiple dimensional states became simultaneously visible, with the mirrors serving as windows into the various possible outcomes of the evening's events. The investigation revealed that the Magnolia Manor Ballroom had been sealed and abandoned following the 1930 disappearance, remaining empty for more than 90 years. Multiple attempts to renovate or repurpose the space had been abandoned when workers and contractors experienced psychological disturbances and equipment malfunctions that made normal construction work impossible. The ballroom had developed a reputation for supernatural harassment that made it effectively uninhabitable despite its architectural magnificence. Modern paranormal investigators, equipped with advanced detection equipment, had documented extensive anomalous activity within the sealed ballroom. Audio recordings had captured sounds of music, laughter, and conversation that corresponded to descriptions of the 1930 party, while visual phenomena had included apparitions of formally dressed figures who appeared to be dancing to music that contemporary observers couldn't hear. The activity appeared to be strongest during the late evening hours around midnight, particularly during holiday periods when social celebrations might naturally occur. Dr. Rothschild's investigation revealed that the 1930 photograph had been taken by Robert Ashford, a pioneering color photographer who had been commissioned to document the party for Charleston's social magazines. Ashford had survived the mass disappearance because he had departed the party early to develop his photographs, a decision that had saved his life while providing the only visual record of the evening's supernatural events. Ashford's subsequent attempts to explain what he had captured in the photograph had been dismissed as delusions brought on by the trauma of losing so many friends and associates. The investigation revealed that Ashford had spent the remainder of his life trying to understand and document the supernatural properties of the Magnolia Manor mirrors. His personal papers, discovered in the same estate sale where the photograph had been found, contained detailed observations about the mirrors' anomalous behavior and theories about the dimensional forces that might be responsible for their unusual properties. Ashford had concluded that the mirrors served as gateways to alternate realities where different versions of events played out according to cosmic principles that human consciousness could only partially comprehend. The research revealed that similar mirror-related disappearances had occurred at other locations where Marcelli mirrors had been installed, suggesting that the Magnolia Manor incident was part of a larger pattern of supernatural phenomena associated with the Venetian craftsman's work. European archives contained records of at least 6 other mass disappearances that had occurred during formal gatherings in rooms decorated with Marcelli mirrors, with the missing individuals never being recovered despite extensive search efforts. Dr. Rothschild's analysis of the surviving Marcelli mirrors revealed that they continued to exhibit anomalous properties more than a century after their creation. Museums and private collectors who owned Marcelli mirrors reported ongoing supernatural phenomena, including temperature variations, electromagnetic disturbances, and visual anomalies that suggested the mirrors remained active despite their age. Several institutions had placed their Marcelli mirrors in storage after experiencing incidents that threatened the safety of staff and visitors. The investigation revealed that the creation technique used by Marcelli for his mirrors had been lost when he died without apprentices in 1862, taking his secrets to the grave. Modern attempts to analyze the composition and structure of Marcelli mirrors had failed to identify the specific materials and processes that gave them their supernatural properties. The mirrors appeared to be made from conventional glass and silver, yet they exhibited behaviors that defied conventional physics and chemistry. Dr. Rothschild's research into dimensional theory suggested that Marcelli mirrors might function by creating localized distortions in the fabric of reality itself, allowing for the observation of alternate timelines and parallel universes. The mirrors could serve as windows into the quantum multiverse, showing observers not just their physical reflection, but glimpses of other versions of themselves existing in different dimensional states. The 1930 party might have created conditions where these dimensional boundaries became permeable, allowing the guests to cross over into alternate realities. The investigation revealed that attempts to remove or destroy Marcelli mirrors had been unsuccessful, with the mirrors apparently possessing some form of supernatural protection that prevented their destruction. Several collectors and institutions had reported that attempts to break or dismantle Marcelli mirrors resulted in the restoration of the original mirror in perfect condition, as if the supernatural forces associated with the glass could repair any damage instantaneously. Modern quantum physicists consulted during the investigation suggested that Marcelli mirrors might operate according to principles of quantum entanglement that connected them to parallel universes where different versions of reality existed simultaneously. The mirrors could function as observation devices that allowed viewers to see across dimensional boundaries, revealing truth about people and events that existed in alternate timeline where different choices had been made or different outcomes had occurred. Dr. Rothschild's final analysis of the 1930 photograph concluded that it represented unprecedented documentation of supernatural phenomena that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality and consciousness. The image provided evidence that certain objects could serve as portals between different dimensional states, allowing for the observation and even the crossing of boundaries that normally separated parallel universes. The terrified reflections in the ballroom mirrors represented the guests' unconscious recognition that they were about to undergo a transformation that would transport them beyond the boundaries of ordinary physical existence. The investigation revealed that the missing party guests might not have died in any conventional sense, but rather had been translated to alternate dimensional states where they continued to exist according to different physical and temporal laws. The mirrors had served as gateways that allowed them to cross over into parallel realities where their lives continued along different trajectories, though their absence from the original timeline made them appear to have vanished without trace. In her concluding report, Dr. Rothschild reflected on the profound implications of the Magnolia Manor case for understanding the nature of consciousness, reality, and the relationship between observation and existence. The 1930 photograph provided evidence that certain objects could function as windows into alternate realities, challenging conventional assumptions about the boundaries between different dimensional states. The case suggested that human consciousness might be capable of existing across multiple dimensions simultaneously, with mirrors serving as tools for observing and accessing these parallel states of being. The story of the 1930 New Year's Eve party reminds us that celebration and tragedy can exist simultaneously in different dimensional states, and that the boundaries between joy and terror might be more permeable than we typically imagine. The photograph captured in that Charleston ballroom continues to serve as evidence that reality itself might be far more complex and multi-layered than our ordinary senses can perceive, with mirrors offering glimpses into the infinite possibilities that exist beyond our immediate experience. Perhaps most remarkably, the guests who disappeared that night might have achieved a form of existence that transcended the limitations of linear time and physical space, finding themselves free to explore alternate versions of their lives across parallel universes. Their apparent terror in the mirror's reflection might represent not suffering, but the overwhelming recognition of infinite possibility, the moment when human consciousness discovers that reality itself is just one choice among countless alternatives. The past guards secrets that challenge comprehension, and what we've uncovered in the shadows of that glittering ballroom reveals that some celebrations become gateways to experiences that extend far beyond the boundaries of ordinary existence, where mirrors show not just our reflection, but our infinite potential across the quantum multiverse. Perhaps the real question isn't what happened to those 37 guests, but whether we have the courage to look into mirrors that reveal the truth about the countless versions of ourselves that exist across parallel realities. The true nature of this mystery remains in the shadows, but we want to know your opinion. Use the comments section below and tell us what you believe. If you are fascinated by unraveling the secrets behind our darkest histories, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, for there is much more to be unmasked.